Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. The case that I'm going to be talking about today is the murder of Candace Hiltz. This case was suggested by my Patreon actually, KU, so thank you for that. I appreciate any suggestions you guys have, and of course if you do have any more, please do let me know. And I just want to add an extra thank you for the support on Patreon. It's amazing and it just means the world to me. Thank you, I really do appreciate you guys, you're all amazing. Candace Hiltz was born on the 22nd of December in 1988 to mother Dolores. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't find her dad's name, but she was born in Canyon City, Fremont County in Colorado. Now, her father did, unfortunately, pass away when she was only 5 years old, and growing up without a dad would have been really hard. She did have several older brothers, which probably had a big influence on like who she turned out to be, because she was often described as a tomboy. A lot of people do become tomboys when you have a lot of brothers around you. She was also really into bodybuilding as well, and although she was obviously a bit of a tomboy, she loved things like necklaces. She used to collect these ones with these huge beads. She used to love all stuff like that. Candace was a very anti-bully person as well. If she would see someone getting bullied, she would always want to step in and defend them, which is such a great trait to have because bullies are just awful and being picked on is just so tragic. So she would try and step in and help people. She was also very intelligent. She was actually classed as a child prodigy at a very young age. I actually do wonder as well, the bully thing, I wonder if that's where she got her career aspirations from, because she wanted to become a lawyer. She saw injustice in the world and she wanted to help fix it. At the age of 16, Candace was in her final year of Brigham Young University's college courses, and she wanted to be a lawyer. She was working towards Supreme Court justice. She'd also just been accepted into Stanford Law School as well. Now, that same year, Candace did find out that she had fallen pregnant, and I don't know who the father was. So yeah, I couldn't find anything on him, not even his name. I don't know who he was. And if anyone does, you can let me know in the comments below. But Candace decided to take a break from her education. Now, as I've said, she was super intelligent. She was way above everyone else in her class, like a few years above. That's how intelligent she was. So her taking a break wouldn't have a massive impact on, you know, her career options, her aspirations to do what she wanted to do, because it would mean that by the time she got back into it, she'd probably just be on par with those people rather than actually be behind. So she decided that she was going to do that. She was going to take time off and just spend it on a child. You know, she was so excited to have her baby and she just wanted to spend tons of time with her. And who doesn't when you've got a newborn child? She did, however, carry on with online courses just to keep her sort of toes in the water, I guess. Paige, her daughter, who she ended up calling, was born on the 19th of September in 2005, but sadly she was actually born with a debilitating brain condition called hydrocephalus, I believe. It's like an abnormal buildup of fluid on the brain. Candace was actually told that Paige would most likely only live a very short life, and she probably wouldn't survive very long after birth. So Candace, as you can imagine, was devastated by this news. Imagine giving birth to your daughter and then being told that. Those words are something you never want to hear in a million years. So she was absolutely devastated. But she wanted to spend as much time with Paige as she could for as long as she could. And Paige really did surprise everyone, because she actually lived until the age of 7, which sadly would be longer than Candace. She outlived her mother. So it's really tragic that she actually never got to spend much time with her mother, especially when she'd not quit her education but paused it and put it on hold to spend time with her little girl. Paige unfortunately did pass away due to her illness on Thanksgiving on the 22nd of November in 2012 under the care of her grandmother Dolores. I'm going to talk to you here about one of Candace's brothers, James, and he's quite important in this case. You will find out why, but he had a few psychological issues, and one of those was crippling social anxiety. He also did have other mental health issues, but that one is like the pinnacle one, because it meant that he couldn't really spend time with people. He wouldn't spend time with his family, not even his own family. He would often be there with his family for like a couple of seconds, and the crippling anxiety got too much for him, and he would have to like literally run to his room. That's how bad it was. He couldn't spend sort of minutes around people. So in 2006, the family get a visit from Fremont County Sheriff's deputy, a man called Robert Dodd. He was actually looking for James. He was questioning him on this trespassing issue. Candace's mother spoke to, obviously, Officer Dodd, and Candace was also there. There's no official sort of documentation as to what was said, but Candace certainly did not like his line of questioning and how he was basically treating her brother and her mother. She actually decided to step in and started shouting at Officer Dodd. His response to that was basically a warning. He was gonna arrest her if she carried on. And she threw her hands up in the air and said, "Go on then, arrest me." Candace then took it one step further by basically saying that she had seen Officer Dodd in and around town accepting envelopes off of people, off of non-drug dealers, and that she would happily make the sheriff aware of such matters. Officer Dodd left the house. It was said that he was very agitated, but he was never to return to the household. And James's trespassing incident was still kind of being looked into. Around a week later, the family dog goes missing. And they did live in an area where, I believe, sort of woods, foresty, quite not super desolate, but you know, there's areas where a dog could easily run off, get lost, and just not come back. So you're thinking, well, maybe it's done that. Maybe he's run off. Maybe he, she, I'm not sure the gender of the dog actually. Or maybe somebody has taken it. Maybe the dog has escaped and got lost and legged it. Something like that. So they just thought it was strange. They looked for the dog and they couldn't find it. And unfortunately, the dog didn't come back. Then on the 15th of August in 2006, the day as every other started like normal, Candace was at home. Dolores was at home. Well, Paige was there too, obviously. And Dolores left the house at about 12. Now, she didn't actually want to go because of everything that had been happening. You know, the grievances with the police, the dog going missing. She was just a bit weary of it. But she actually had things that she needed to take care of, that she needed to do. And so she had to leave. So that's what she did. She left Candace in the house with Paige and off she went to do her errand. Nobody knew that that would be the last time that she would see Candace like that. The next time would be in such a tragic and horrific way, and Candace would be brutally murdered. Dolores came home at about 3:30, and as she entered the house, she heard Paige crying and screaming. So she goes in to find out what's going on. Obviously, Candace is supposed to be there. Why is Paige crying so much? So she goes in, and this is when she sees blood absolutely everywhere. So she panics, grabs Paige, and then she notices something under the bed in a green blanket. She goes over, she pulls out, sort of unravels this green blanket, pulls it out, and that is where she sees the body of her daughter, Candace. And she pretty much was classed as decapitated. She'd actually been shot multiple times, and, you know, I don't even want to go into the details of it. It's just beyond horrific. She holds her daughter's hands as she waits for the police, which obviously she called to attend straight away. Deputy Briscoe and Deputy Dodd were the lead investigators in the case. And if you remember correctly, Deputy Dodd was the one who Candace had the issue with. And that was like about a week prior. So officers go in, they usher all of the family out, which I found to be strange because they didn't cordon off the house. They literally didn't even crime tape it at all. It was like an open house. Anyone could come in, come out, but they ushered the family out, got them out of the way, and then they just did a very botched up job of the investigation and handling of the crime scene, which you will see. Straight away, they were thinking James had done it. That's where their blame was pointed. You know, the man that actually couldn't stand being anywhere near anybody, not even his own family. Yeah, that's who they were thinking it was. Candace's body was obviously taken out for an autopsy, and the report was released saying that she had been murdered, of course, but she had sustained 7 shots and that it had been done with 3 separate guns. Now, separate guns obviously implies multiple killers normally. When Dolores actually read this report, she had major concerns with it because initially, first of all, it said that Candace's boyfriend was the one that found her. Now, Candace didn't even have a boyfriend. Apparently this report said that the boyfriend found her, went and told his wife about it, and then that was how it happened. But Dolores was actually the one that found her. Candace didn't even have a boyfriend. So where that even remotely came from, who knows? But obviously that was very incorrect, and it just didn't make any sense. She also found bullet casings when she was allowed back into the home, which I again found very strange, because I'm pretty sure they should take away all of that evidence. That stuff is very important, especially shell casings and spent bullets. But yeah, she found them, and as a result of that, she was convinced that only 2 guns were used, because she had, I believe she had a shotgun shell casing and then another gun casing, but those were the only 2 ammo that was there. So that is why she believed that there was only 2 guns used. Not only that, she believed that her daughter had been shot a lot more times than they were saying, and in different areas. And as you already know, she saw the body, she found her, she saw what a mess she was in. And that is what she believed. She believed that there was definitely more shots fired than that. As the officers searched around the area, guess what they found? They actually found the Hiltz family dog. Now, this poor dog had been tied to a tree and butchered with either a hatchet, a small hatchet, or an axe, something like that. Which obviously does raise some questions, like why was the dog taken away and brutally killed? Why would anyone do that? It seemed like somebody had like a grievance against the family. That's just what I got from it anyway. And now we get to where Dolores is allowed back into the house. And honestly, the back door to her house, what the police were using, was left open. So they didn't even close that. I've already told you that it wasn't crime taped off anywhere. They left behind a few pieces of evidence too. She found a shotgun shell casing in Paige's crib. There was this monitor that was absolutely covered in blood. It was used to hold the bed up where Candace was put under. That was still there. They had, you know, the blanket that she was wrapped in, which surely you'd think that they would definitely take, because maybe it's got the killer's DNA on or something like that, because they actually wrapped her up in it. Well, no, that was still there. They hadn't taken that, you know, that was all still there. There was these towels that Dolores was pretty sure that had been used by the killers. They were still there, and again, you're thinking maybe those have DNA on. Who actually knows at this point? But they weren't taken either. Candace's bloody shirt that she had wore while she was murdered was also still there. Honestly, I was actually dumbfounded when I was looking into this case and found all of that stuff that they still left behind. Seasoned cops do not leave that much evidence behind. You know, you want to gather all the evidence that you can. Apparently, they didn't gather much of it, and they left the house with about 15 items, according to Dolores, and they left all of that behind. It's just crazy. What if they found somebody's DNA on that? It could have been a vital piece of evidence, and they just left it. Dolores was obviously in shock, like anyone would be, and she actually called her son, who was involved in a criminal forensics class, which is very lucky. She called him, and he actually helped her to bag and catalogue all of the evidence that they had left behind safely. She takes this, she goes to the police station, and she tells them that she has got a ton of evidence, obviously what they all left behind, and they just basically tell her to sit down and wait. They kept repeating that someone will be with you in a minute, someone will be out in a minute, blah, 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 and then eventually this young man came out, and he finally told her to just take it home and that somebody would arrive at the house to collect it. Now, apparently, Deputy Briscoe did then arrive at the house to collect the evidence later on. 3 days after the murder, on Friday the 18th of August, James was actually found camping southwest of Canyon City, and he was arrested. He went to trial and things, but he was actually found not guilty because of reasons of insanity in relations to the crimes that he was charged with. Now, nothing of that was to do with Candace's murder, I don't believe. Yes, okay, they were pointing the finger at him, but I don't think they had any hard evidence to tie him into her murder. He was then sent to Colorado Mental Institute, and Dolores has since said that he is doing extremely well there. And again, just to clarify, he has never ever been charged with anything in relation to his sister's murder. Despite all the evidence, all the evidence that they had, all the tips that were coming in, Candace's case would unfortunately go cold. And then something very strange happened 10 years later. And I mean very strange. So we're in December of 2016 now, and this man who was called Rick ends up buying this storage locker. If you don't pay your monthly fees or something on these storage lockers, you know, they do end up going up for sale, and that's how they recoup some of their, you know, lost earnings. So this locker goes up for sale. This guy Rick buys it, and he looks inside. I mean, you've all seen the locker storage wars and things like that, surely. But they look around, feel like if I can get it for cheap enough, it'll be worth the money kind of thing, and then they all put bids on it. So he sees inside like some police gear and things like that, and he puts his bid in for it. He wins it for $50, I think. And then later on, he goes to look inside, and he finds this brown envelope that actually says evidence on it. When he pulls out the contents, he finds a bloodied axe, some rope, and some bloody socks. And guess whose case they were from? They were from Candace's case. And who on earth would put evidence in an ongoing case, bearing in mind, yes, okay, it's cold at this point, but it's still open, it's still ongoing, they have not solved it, they do not know who killed Candace. Who would put evidence with regards to that into their own personal storage locker? Well, they did some digging, and let me tell you whose storage locker it was. Can you guess? Well, it was Deputy Dodd's. Seriously, it was his storage locker. Rick actually looked into Candace's case, and he figured, like many other people, that the police were being very weird about it, and I don't know, he didn't quite trust them, so he didn't just turn over this evidence to the sheriff's department. He tells them that they can send an officer down and he will show it to them. So they do. They send, I believe, Deputy Briscoe actually down to the locker, and his wife actually records the entire thing. There is a link, so there is a video of this, I believe, probably on YouTube, that you could look up if you wanted to listen to the entire conversation. But she records it all, and he shows him the evidence, but he doesn't actually let him take it, which is probably a great call, because he then hands it over to the Colorado Bureau of Investigations, the CBI for short, and they have then stated that they are actually looking into the sheriff's department for misconduct, amongst other things. So it's kind of brought a bit of, I know it's years since that happened, but it, at the time at least, it brought a spark of life into the case that possibly it could eventually one day get solved, especially with the CBI looking into it and looking into the sheriff's department. So you never know. I know that's 2016, we're now in 2022. It's, you know, it's been like 6 years since that happened. But who knows? You know, they could have leads, they could have tips. I just couldn't find anything sort of more recent than that on it. But yeah, we're all hoping that this case gets solved one day. With regards to Robert Dodd, in January of 2017, he was put on administrative leave. In April, he retired from the force. And then 2 months later, he was actually charged with 2 counts of official misconduct. In the trial, he basically said that the items were stored in his office in a locker for a very long time, and then he ends up moving offices, and he didn't want to take them with him. It's evidence. Why is it even in a locker in your office in the first place? But then to just leave it there and move offices, I don't know. But yeah, this is what he claimed. It was there for a year apparently, and he was gonna take more photos of it and delve deeper into it, but then he moved offices, didn't want it there, so he moved them to his family house. What? And then his family moved out, so then he moved it to his storage locker. Huh? Anyone else thinking that this is super strange? An official person of the law, a police officer, is putting evidence in his office for starters, then in his house, and then in a storage locker. And then he doesn't even pay the bill on that storage locker, knowing there's evidence in it, and then it goes up for auction. I don't know. I mean, I'm glad it did, obviously, but it's just very, very confusing and very suspicious. Oh boy, it doesn't end there, guys, because there was more evidence found at a landfill, and this evidence was a tape, and it actually connected him to an unsolved sexual assault case. Apparently not a great man of the law after all. Obviously, with these cases, there are theories on what happened. There's a huge theory, like a police conspiracy, cover-up kind of theory, as you can imagine. It does look pretty strange with everything that happened. Like, she has an argument with him. She threatens to tell the sheriff's department about him with drugs, obviously. I'm not saying that that's true. I'm not saying that it is untrue. I do not know. It's just theories at this point and what people think. So yeah, that is a huge one in this case, and people really do believe that it could be very possible. There's also people that do believe that James was the one that killed Candace, like the police thought, but again, that was mainly their theory. I don't believe that that is widely thought of. And then there's also, obviously, there could be numerous things that happen. These are just the main theories that people believe. And then there's like a stranger theory that Candace was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, I guess. Maybe some people came in to her house and they just wanted to murder somebody, and she was there and they killed her. So that they didn't know her at all, and you know, that is unfortunately what happened. It's up to you guys to figure out what you believe. I've given you all the information that I could find on this case, and hopefully I really do pray that one day this case gets solved and Dolores finally gets answers as to what happened to her daughter, because just it was so brutal. The attack was just so vicious and brutal and very personal, it seemed like, because I don't know, I might be wrong on that. Is like shooting somebody so many times more of like a personal attack? I think it might be, yeah. But yeah, that is the end of the case. If you guys have enjoyed this video, give me a big thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for similar content. Anyway, that's all I have today on the case of Candace Hiltz. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.